describe this religion or this way of life. In the hadith narrated in Sahih Muslim on the authority of the Sahabi Tamim Dari radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ad-dinu an-nasiha." That dinu nasiha, the religion is nasiha. Now I'm not translating nasiha yet because this word, there isn't any equivalent to it in the English language. One of the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that Allah blessed him with a speech that was comprehensive. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could say something in 2 words or 3 words, and we would need an entire lecture or an entire book to understand it, because the words he used were that dynamic and that comprehensive. And the word nasiha is an excellent example of this, because the word nasiha means many different things, but there are 2 primary meanings or 3 primary meanings that I want to cover today. An-nasiha means sincerity. An-nasiha means wanting good for others, and an-nasiha means advising each other. And so these are the 3 meanings that we are going to look at today, inshallah. What does it mean that this religion is a religion of sincerity, it is a religion of wanting good for others, and it is a religion of advice? What does this mean, and how do we apply this to our lives? This hadith, many of the early scholars had stated that this is one of the hadiths that summarizes all of Islam. If you want to know what Islam is, what Islam is about, how do you be a Muslim, this is the hadith that you follow. To such an extent that one of the early scholars stated that just this hadith alone is enough to guide you on how to live your life. Why? Because this word nasiha, it teaches us the 3 elements of being a good Muslim. To be sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to want good for the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to advise each other towards righteousness. The 3 elements of being a good Muslim. So what is nasiha as sincerity, and why is this important? Sincerity is important because this is one of the 3 conditions for any good deed to be accepted. Any deed that we do, it is only accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if it fulfills 3 conditions. Number 1, that we are Muslim. Right? For a deed to be accepted in the akhirah, we have to be Muslim. In this world, Allah will reward others for what they do, but for it to have value on the scale of deeds and contribute towards us going to Jannah, we have to be Muslim. Number 2, it must be in accordance to what Allah has revealed. Meaning we cannot invent our own religion. We must follow the Sharia. And number 3 is ikhlas. It must be done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There must be no ulterior motive in the good deeds that we do. Meaning, anything that we do, we should not do a good deed for the sake of our ego. We should not do a good deed for showing off. We should not do a good deed just because somebody else told us to do it or because everybody else is doing it. We should do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the meaning of the first part of the hadith. The Sahaba asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this religion is nasiha. Nasiha to who? Because the word nasiha in Arabic is the kind of verb that has an object. Right? You don't do it on your own. You don't do nasiha by yourself. It's always nasiha towards someone. So they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, liman, to who should we have this nasiha? Number 1, he said, lillah, to Allah. To Allah. To be sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That whatever we do it for Allah. And so let this hadith, number 1, be a reminder to each and every one of us to always purify our intentions. That anything we do it for Allah. And really this comprises the entire religion. Because our religion, every single deed that we do, our sincerity and our intentions plays a role in it. Right? Whether it's salah, whether it's fasting, whether it's wudu, whether it's charity, even our work, everything, intention plays a role. Just to give you an example of how powerful intention is. If someone is standing and they're praying 4 rak'ah, the only difference between 4 rak'ah of zuhr and 4 rak'ah of sunnah is intention. Right? Let me give you an even more powerful example of how important intention is. If someone is giving somebody else 1,000 rand, The only difference between that being a good deed or a sin is his intention. Because if he's giving it to him as a gift, that's a good deed. If he's giving it to him as a bribe, that's a sin. Now what's the difference between a gift and a bribe? The niyyah, the ikhlas, the nasiha, the sincerity, the intention. And so every single thing we do as Muslims, we are told to introspect, we are told to look inward. Why do I do what I do? Because if I'm not doing it for the right reasons, there is no reward for it in the afterlife and it has no value. So nasiha to Allah, sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the hadith continues, nasiha to his book and his messenger. What does this mean? This means that we are sincere in our understanding and our following of the Quran and the Sunnah. That we are sincere in our understanding and following of the Quran and the Sunnah, because it is very easy to misinterpret the Quran and Sunnah to suit one's desires. You will find people from every walk of life finding a way to twist the meanings of the Quran or to twist the meanings of the Hadith to make it justify their life. As Muslims, we should not be looking for a way to make the Quran and Sunnah fit our desires. We should be sincere to the Quran and Sunnah. We should be looking at the Quran and Sunnah as our guidance. That if the Quran is saying something and my desires are saying the opposite, I must follow the Quran and I must abandon my desires. And so this is the first part of sincerity in Islam, of nasiha in Islam, and that is our sincerity towards Allah and towards His religion. And this really sums up how we're supposed to live our lives. And so my first message today is that we must look inward. We all must spend time every day to reflect and to improve our intentions, because this is a test for life. Our intention is not something that you just clarify or fix once. It is a test for life. Someone can be sincere today and tomorrow they may go astray. Someone could be sincere today and tomorrow their ego flames up. So every day, make time to sit and think, am I doing what I'm doing for the sake of Allah? Or is there some other ulterior motive involved? And let us always work on improving our sincerity for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and towards His religion. The second part of the hadith, nasiha to the leaders and the average Muslim. Here the word nasiha takes on multiple meanings. You see, when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nasiha can only mean sincerity. Right? Nasiha can't mean advice, because you can't advise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in that context, it only means sincerity. But the second half of the hadith, the word nasiha has multiple meanings. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us to have nasiha towards the leaders of the Muslims and the average Muslim, this means that we are sincere to each other, we want good for each other, and we advise each other. There are three main meanings of the word nasiha in this context: sincerity towards each other, wanting good for each other, and advising each other. What do we mean by sincerity towards each other? That we are not hypocritical and two-faced in our dealings with each other. Sometimes a Muslim may smile at someone to his face and then backbite him the next day. Sometimes a person may tell you to their face they are happy for you, but in their heart they have hasad and jealousy towards you. This is not nasiha. This is not sincerity towards our fellow Muslims. Nasiha is that we are sincere in our wanting what is best for each other. Nasiha means that our interactions with everybody, regardless of who they are, our interactions are always interactions that are based on wanting what is good for others and being sincere towards each other. And so this is something we can also improve. That in our interpersonal relationships, how do we interact with the next person? What do we think about the next person? What feelings are in our hearts towards the next person? Because if our hearts are full of jealousy, full of anger, full of resentment, wanting revenge, wanting the other person to fail, then we do not have nasiha, we do not have ikhlas, and we will go astray through this. We will tear apart the ummah through this. And so nasiha towards our fellow Muslims does not just mean saying things. More importantly, that our intentions in our hearts in dealing with each other is intentions that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhana rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين ونستغفره ونؤمن به توكل عليه أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. The other two meanings of nasiha are very important today. Nowadays we have this problem in the ummah that people, either in person or more so online, they are extremely harsh and vulgar and mean towards their fellow Muslims. They don't want good for each other. They can only see the bad in each other. When they talk, their words are full of venom. And the intentions, it's as if they can't see any good in the next person. And when you ask them, why are you doing this? They say, brother, I'm just giving nasiha. I'm just giving him advice. This is not nasiha. Because the definition of nasiha is to sincerely want good for the other person. Even when it takes the meaning of advice, if you look in the dictionary, it doesn't just say advice. It says sincere advice, well-wishing advice, advice from the heart. And so if you're giving nasiha to someone, nasiha doesn't come from a place of venom. It doesn't come from a place of ego. It doesn't come from the place of putting someone down. Nasiha comes from the place that you love your brother and you want him to succeed and you want him to go to Jannah. And so gently and privately and sincerely you advise him about his mistakes. This is nasiha. To go online and to spread slander about Muslims, to attack your fellow Muslims, to talk bad about fellow Muslims in public, this is never nasiha. This is slander, this is gossip, this is backbiting, this is not our way of life. And no good comes out of this. This divides the Muslims, this causes people to hate each other, this causes the ummah to fragment into groups and subgroups that fight with each other. What good comes out of this kind of behavior? And so as Muslims, let us reform the way that we deal with each other. That our interactions with each other are interactions of nasiha, because this is the religion of nasiha, that we only want good for each other. And I'll mention two more hadiths to drive home this point. The first hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you truly believe hatta yuhibbu li akhi ma yuhibbu li nafsi, until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. That should be our ideal when dealing with anyone. We want for them what we want for ourselves. We love for them what we love for ourselves. And so we interact with them in the way we want others to interact with us. The other hadith, and I'll conclude with the story, it's a beautiful story, that once the Prophet ﷺ, he was sitting in the masjid with the Sahaba, and he said the next person to walk in is from the people of Jannah. And a man walked in who wasn't famous. Nobody really knew him. He was just your average regular musalli. So average that we don't even know his name. It's not even mentioned in the narration. And so the Sahaba were confused because he said the next person to walk in is from the people of Jannah. They thought Abu Bakr is going to walk in, or Umar, or someone who you know is a pious man. But someone completely unknown walked in. And so one of his younger Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he was curious to find out, what is this guy doing to get to Jannah? I mean, nobody even knows him. And so he followed this man. And it's a long story. He followed this man. He spent a day in this man's company. He watched this man's practices. This man wasn't praying tahajjud, maybe just 2 rakats towards the end of the night. He wasn't fasting in the daytime. He wasn't doing any extra dhikr or any extra Quran, nothing more than the other Sahaba. He was just your average farmer or businessman, just your average guy. He goes to the masjid, he comes home, he spends time with his family. Yet Rasulullah said he's from the people of Jannah. And so finally Abdullah ibn Umar, he asks him, what is it? And the man asked him, what are you talking about? He said, the Prophet said you are from the people of Jannah. What are you doing that we are not doing? And the man said, I don't know. And so he thought about it for a while. And then he called Abdullah ibn Umar back and he said, I think I know what it is. I go to bed at night. I make sure I don't have any ill feelings in my heart to anybody else. Nasiha. His heart is full of wanting good for everybody else. And Abdullah ibn Umar said, that's it. That's your quality that makes you from the people of Jannah. That you want good for everyone. You don't want to have the slightest bit of ill feelings towards your fellow Muslims. And this is the level of nasiha that we strive for. That we should not have in our hearts jealousy. We should not have in our hearts ego. We should not have in our hearts hatred for our fellow Muslims. We should want good for everyone. Anyone you meet, you want that person to be from amongst the people of Jannah. And you interact with that person in a way that brings them closer to Allah, not in a way that chases them away from this religion. And so our religion is nasiha, and our lifestyle should be nasiha, and our hearts should be full of nasiha, and our words should be nasiha, and this should be our way of life, because in the deen nasiha, the religion is nasiha. It is sincerity, it is well-wishing, it is advice, it is counsel, it is wanting what is best for each other. And this is the description given to this religion by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is how we should live our lives. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما سبحان رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. أقم الصلاة.